great privilege to me on behalf of the Department of Commerce and Management Studies, that is the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, to introduce and welcome the keynote speaker for the today's work session. First and second, Dr. Professor Dr. K. Venugopal Rao. Dr. Pen Gopal Rao is from he's from SK Sri Krishna Deva Arya University, Anantapura, Andhra Pradesh, India. His specialization is from marketing, and he has a teaching experience of more than the 22 years and research experience of the more than 25 years generally. And as for the details we have for the Professor K. Venugopal Rao is he has completed his PhD from SB University, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh. He has also completed his faculty development program from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has completed his MBA from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam, and the BCom also from the great university, Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. As for the administrative experience is concerned, other than the academic experiences, Professor Venugopal Rao had the experience of additional director, Center for Distance Education, SK University, Anantapur. He has already worked as a deputy warden and of the men's hostel. His area of interest for teaching is strategic management, international business, brand management, services marketing, retail management, business environment, marketing management, and entrepreneurship. As a guest faculty, he has credit to deliver his lectures in the various universities like the Pondicherry University, Annamalai University, and Visakhapatnam, North Eastern Hill University, Meghalaya, and etc. Till the date, Sir has guided more than 10 PhD students, and as far the publication is concerned, the Sir has published 36 papers in the national and 2 international papers. And as far the books is concerned, the total number of books for the Sir is that is 4 books that has been published by the Sir. And as for the seminar and conferences is concerned, the Sir has attended more than 14 conferences, including international also. He has also completed certain major projects, and he has also visited the country for the academic purposes like US and Canada also. It's our that is a credit to have such a type of renowned professor, Professor K. Venugopal Rao, for the 2 days session. I am welcoming Professor K. Venugopal Rao to deliver and to provide certain fruitful lectures and his experiences so that our students can improve his researches, and not only the researches but the methodology which he wants to use, because we are well known that undoubtedly in India we have the more number of researchers in terms of the quantity, but in terms of the quality, the researches, these are very less in comparison to the other states. So generally, this is a little efforts by the department to improve the quality of research of our research scholars. So as a part and parcel of the internal assessment of the coursework, this workshop has been started. So now again I am welcoming Professor Venugopal Rao ji. Please, sir, please proceed. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are able, sir.
Yeah. There?
Sir, sometimes coming, sometimes going, don't worry. That is due to
So
internet,
at least
maybe.
audio is
Okay.
guaranteed.
Sir, we know as far as India is concerned, internet facility, there will be
Yeah.
with a certain looking, sir.
Uh,
Okay. And I
I
know very well that you are.
Yeah, we have certain limitations even in certain limitations. But I really appreciate Jaiswal Saab. I have been seeing your in Facebook
Yes.
photos. I build for taking such a good initiative of giving and imparting very quality education to the research scholars and the budding teachers. Very promising
sir.
and potential
It's nice,
for
sir.
future academicians. And coming to here, the kind of data that you have had, probably very old. I have 31 years of teaching experience, and I served as a UPSC board member, AICTE member, and NAG, and UGC visits, right? And I even worked on the committee of selection for vice chancellor, such committee for Alagappa University, Tamil Nadu in 2018.
Oh, great, sir. Great, sir.
So this is, yeah, this is, I'm the dean at the moment, Commerce and Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies.
Great, sir. When the situation will be normal, we will call personally to you to be here at Varanasi. But due to COVID, it is not possible. We are on webinar.
Giving up our relations.
Yes.
And students must know I was the UGC net paper setter for continuously 8 years from 2005 to 2013, representing Pradesh like that. So coming to the research, the students should draw some inspiration, and I need to tell about me for a while. And the topic is very simple and all. We need to give a lot of illustrations of people to understand. I passed, say, UGC JRF way back in 1980. And interview at Delhi level. And I passed that. And after that, we need to tell the present generation about the past research experience and the present the kind of transform the research landscape. Research in the past is a different kind of thing. It used to take a lot of time. In the sense, we used to type on a typewriter. This is what was done on a typewriter. You can imagine huge tables are there. If a small mistake is there, we have to redo the entire calculations and percentages. Right? That was highly time consuming sort of a thing. And data collection is to involve moving from one, right? So a lot of difficulties used to be there in the data collection also. And calculations and all, I mean, manually they have to be done. The present generation is very fortunate. You have your app driven. You have Google Scholar. You have Sodh Grantha. and you have UGC journals, Scopus Index journals, impact factor, API score, right, and plagiarism. These are all the present generation tools and techniques. It has make your life easier. Research is easier. Package and a lot of other things which are making research is easier. And these is not accepted also. We don't. Lot of right. So with the advent of technology and all that, your research this thing is very easy, and you have API score and all that for everything. Every category marks are there. Publications, international this much, and seminars, conferences, books. For everything, some marks are there. As a result, you may be able to improve your academic score, and so that you may be able to get into good organizations, right? So academic output now can be faster as compared to the past generation. Technology was less. We were in the dark age, you are in the information age. And a lot of fellowships are also there. ICSSR, UGC, and so many other fellowships have also come. Right? And in spite of all these things, our generation was having a lot of willpower, perseverance, and tenacity of purpose. This generation probably is not nation a fire to do something like that. So now that I would like to talk about two sessions I'm going to take. 1 to 2, I'm going to speak on sampling, very easy, simple topic. And after 2:30 to 3, there is a break for about half an hour like that. And I resume again at 3 o'clock, and 4 till 4:30, we may be able to have very lively discussions about determination of sample size. Like it is war we are for the young generation of research scholars who are doing a coursework with a lot of aspirations and pursuing this. And if you are able to do this pakka, and if you have complete knowledge about research methodology and all that, if you are able to complete on time, wonderful jobs are there within India and also in other countries also. These days, people are going to different countries also. And there is a shortage of the faculty globally. And so many private and deemed universities are also emerging. And NITs and IITs are also having MBA. And even IEMs are also, like we have 22 like that. And they are also recruiting and trying to take good and potential students. So I welcome you to this wonderful coursework seminar of research methodology. And I would like to speak on sampling, and which is very, as I told you, very simple and easy topic. Is there anyone who will assist me in showing the PPT? I have already sent PPT sampling. If you can show that, it will not disturb me. Like otherwise, I have to.
Yes, sir. Might we have sent the PPT to our HOD, sir?
Huh?
Sir, should I play the PPT that you have sent to the HOD, sir?
Yeah, I sent through mail. You can show sampling.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Just give me, sir, 2-3 minutes. I will play
Yeah,
it for you.
you can take. In the meantime, I'll be able to speak on something else. You get ready,
Okay, sir. Okay.
right? Okay. And coming to the sampling, I need to give overview of what exactly is the sampling and what is its importance in research and all that. We all know about blood sample, urine sample and all that. Is inflicted with some ailment or illness. There are certain symptoms. You may get fever. You may get some other cough, cold, whatever. The symptoms are common for all ailments. In such condition, blood sample is taken, that is carried out as a test. Pathologists will carry out what is the root cause for this and what is. With this blood only, they'll say whether or what is the cholesterol level, bad cholesterol, triglycerides, right? And all these things they give a report, and that is in the coding form. If you take it to the doctor, he will decode. He will tell us this is your fever is a symptom, and because of this you have this. So we are giving don't. He will tell apart from giving some medicine. So whether it is a blood sample or urine sample, they are very representative of what is going on in the body. Similarly, these days we have, supposing some skin related problem is there. They take a small part of the skin, they send in a overnight courier in a blue dart to America. In America, they will do some sort of tests on that, upload the prescription, upload the diagnosis and prescription. And though the patient is in India, if he is able to send his small part of the skin, he will get the diagnosis, prescription like that. Similarly, these days people are talking about COVID-19 and all that. So if there are certain persistent symptoms, cough is there, cold is there, sneezing is there, fever is there, for the past 3 days, 4 days, it is unmitigated, unabated. If this is the case, and in spite of using paracetamol and all other palliatives, even if the disease is persisting, then they will go to some center where they will do some sort of test for COVID-19. And the results will come within 5 to 6 hours or like that. They'll say whether he has got positive for that or negative for that. Right? These are all the sampling for deciding what is there in the body. Whether it is a blood sample, urine sample, or COVID sample, or whatever, it is taken from the nose, and basing on that, they may be able to come to the conclusion that a person has got positive or negative. Right? So we have different samples, and that we are going to see once we see the PPT and all that. We may be able to talk about that. In the meantime, what we can see is certain studies are there. I may be able to relate them to our studies and try to explain our sampling method so that it will be very, very easy for us. And in the sense that we have certain studies, consumer, for instance, a hypothetical study. Consumer behavior towards gearless scooters in some part of Andhra Pradesh. Right. So our interest is that we would like to gauge the perception, motivation, and attitude of the people who are using gearless scooters. Gearless scooters, the Hero Pleasure, Activa, Duet, and so many other brands are there, which are very, very popular. And school going, college going girls and office going people, retired people usually use gearless scooters. Okay, na? So that we would like to study what the behavior of the attitude of the people towards that, their satisfaction, their perception, their attitude. We want to measure, for instance. Then how we go about, what is the mechanism that is involved in that, and is there any systematic way of studying the population and all that. Okay, and for that purpose, I'll give certain first of all overview what you should as a research scholars, what you are supposed to do. You must be having so many lectures for the past 2 or 3 days like that, right? When you have started with one topic that is there in your mind, what you should do, go about doing that, start collecting information on that particular topic. Apart from having clarity about the concept, that means you should know all about consumer behavior, right? And you should be thorough with all consumer behavior models, individual factors, and environmental factors influencing the person. It may be individual factors or it may be environmental factors, and like that. Like the socioeconomic factors influence, demographic factors influence, and influence of age, reference group, family, and these are all some of the variables that we would like to see, right? Its influence on the brand choice, which brand a particular person is using, which color is buying, and is there an association between income and brand name, income and say color of the motorbike, color of the scooter. So this is how we are interested in investigating and probing the mind of the probable possible respondents, right? So we may not be studying all the population. Population is a universe. We take only a few, maybe 300, 400, 500, like that we may be able to take. And we try to get info responses from these people. And we try to make inferences, generalizations about the whole population, right? So there is no need to study the entire population. If the population is very huge and you need to choose some representative samples, and accordingly you need to come to the conclusions. That is the idea. And there is no need for you to completely study that population. PPT ready, sir? PPT ready?
Just 2 minutes more, sir.
Okay, 2 minutes.
There is a network
So
issue,
this
sir.
is how collecting review of literature. As I told you, there is a systematic procedure for once you have chosen the topic and all that. What you are supposed to do, you should collect the information on that relevant data. Where you get Google Scholar is there, previous articles are there. If you just keywords, if you type in the Google search engine, you will get the complete articles, national, international. You can say consumer behavior towards gearless scooters. You can get complete articles over a period of time. Articles and even in journals, in digital magazines and other things. So whatever you are able to see, you will get the complete information from this. And also this is available in other countries, right? So this is available in other universities. You have to collect in Sodharanda and all other places. You can download, you can read, understand, right? So once you have a fair idea, what should be the review of literature, and after studying all review of literature, you will get to know about the research gaps. What are the research gaps, and what I should study? Then from there, these are all the gaps not covered by earlier researchers. I want to choose those objectives which are not covered by previous studies. So I have a list of the identified research gaps, and from that I can derive my own objectives derive my own hypothesis, and this is how a problem statement is evolved. And yes, it has come. Thank you very much. Sampling has come, and you may be able to scroll one by one, and I may be able to keep that here and start explaining. And the next slide, sampling.
Okay, sir, just a minute. I'm playing this, sir.
Sampling, next slide.
This one, sir.
Yeah. Sampling is the process of selecting observations to provide an adequate description and inferences of the population. And sample, it is a unit that is selected from a population. Sample represents the whole population. Sampling is the purpose to draw the inferences. If you just see the next slide, you will understand. I have given diagrams. Next slide, you can see population N. Go to the next slide. And also I have Aish Kumar.
Ji, sir.
Next slide.
Ji, sir. Ji, sir. Ji, sir.
Yes, this is this illustration. No, you can draw the what is population, entire population, and from that we are choosing only sample which is representative of that. There is no need to completely study populations. Population may be lakhs or crores. And just like as I said, the blood test, we don't take the complete blend of the person. He will die. So to know the disease, we may run through blood or urine. The disease is suffering from. The same analogy holds good here also. So we take some sample. On the basis, we may be able to come to the conclusion, and you make an inferences, and you can say that what is the purpose of that, like that. And the next slide, if you can just see. Yeah, sampling. Here, there is a total population. Within that, in the blue shade, we have a sampling frame. It's from where over this thing. And you have sampling process. And the green, something in the green, you know, that is a sample we have taken from that. So step by step, from population to sampling frame to sample. So what we are making from this, in the blurb it is given, you know, in the circle, what you actually observe in the data. And you make inferences about the total population. As I told you, blood sample. So this is the disease of this fellow, right? Similarly, what you want to talk about, that population is something that what you want to talk about. That means about that you are going to make an inference, right? This is the whole gamut, whole picture, which illustrates very, very amply, very, very simply, and the whole concept of population, sampling, inferences, sampling process, and stuff like that. So moving on to the characteristics of a good sampling. A sample to be called as a good sampling should have certain characteristics. We proceed, and in the next slide, we can see certain characteristics. What they are: the sample must represent the population correctly, right? So if it is not representing, what will happen? There will be sampling error, right? So it must be free from bias. Bias in the sense that partisanship, right? Favoritism. And the sample should not reflect bias, and it must possess the least sampling error. And no, it should be representative of that, and the size of that must be optimum, right? Neither more nor less. So the advantages, if you are able to see, we are slightly moving away from characteristics and to the advantages of sampling, right? Advantages, Aish. See, advantages, if we follow the sampling, reduce time and cost to collect data. We are not covering the entire population. We are taking some hundreds, like that. As a result, we are saving on time and also cost. More comprehensive data is obtained than in a census. In a population, you may not be able to cover very comprehensively. But if the size is very less, that we call sample, we may be able to do that. Administrative control is there, motivation is also there, data is also reliable, and no non-response error. What is response? If we give a questionnaire, a list of questions, as in I have given a hypothetical example of consumer behavior towards gearless scooters, right? So we prepare a checklist of questions that we call questionnaire. In that we ask which brand you are using, for how long you are using, right? Are you satisfied with the mileage, its make, its design, its pickup, its speed, its color? So many these things, parameters we ask, we try to probe their perception, their attitude, their satisfaction with all these variables, right? So if that what his responses are, I mean, we on the basis of those responses, we may be able to come to the conclusions and all. So next we move to the principles of sampling. We have seen characteristics, we have seen advantages. Now, what are its basic tenets, basic principles of sampling? Selection of a sample must be systematic and objective. And there should not be any rule of thumb or arbitrariness in this. In an objective manner, in a systematic manner, the selection has to take place. Sample unit must be clearly defined and easily identifiable. And sample, what are the samples you are choosing? We must be able to easily identify that. Sample units must be independent of each other. There should not be dependence on these things. So same units of sample must out the study. So we don't change the sample. Once we have taken the sample, till our study is completed, we try to keep that and continue the same. The selection process must be unsound. There must be a rationale. On what basis, on what criteria they're choosing the sample. So it should avoid bias or errors and all that. So having seen advantages, characteristics, and principles of sampling, now that we are moving towards a very important kind of sampling decision process, right? There are kinds of like homogeneous and heterogeneity. Homogeneity, heterogeneity, two concepts I should try to introduce to you. What is homogeneity? Like-mindedness within the group. In a classroom, supposing you are nearly 45, some 15 from MBA and 30 from commerce students are there. All are not equal with regard to attitude, perception, mental makeup, psychological makeup, ethnic group, food habits. You are not one. Your beliefs are different, attitudes are different, perceptions are different, birth is different, everything is different. Social class is different, economic conditions are different. No two people are alike. So those who share the same opinion, background and everything, we call them homogeneous group. All teachers homogeneous, all doctors homogeneous group, all lawyers, advocates one group. Heterogeneity, diversity is there. Yours is a heterogeneous group, right? And in the entire university, again, if you compare with the university, you are heterogeneous. Why? Because you have some commerce and management affinity. So what is heterogeneity, what is homogeneity depends on so many other factors. So next slide is very, very comprehensive. At a glance, you get to an idea. Let's, the entire story is here only. Sampling story is completely here given in this flowchart. If you understand this one very well, very clearly, it is easy to understand and comprehend our sampling design process, right? The first one in this process, step by step, if we go, first define population. What is population? In the hypothetical example I have taken, consumer behavior. The whole population of the people who are using two-wheelers. All two-wheelers are the population, right? And the large group the large group from which individuals are selected to participate in a study. Population can be defined as including all people or items with the characteristic one wishes to understand. So we have three layers: target population, source population, study population. So this is how we are able to identify from among the two-wheeler population, right? So next what we do, second step is sampling frame. So second one, we are moving slowly, a list of population elements, people, companies, house, cities. From units to be sampled can be selected. A sample we can choose. As I told you, the list of the people who bought a two-wheelers. Difficult to get an accurate list, and the sample frame error occurs when certain elements of the population are accidentally omitted or included on the list. Supposing we choose the people who do not actually belong to this group, some sampling error is likely to happen. But by and large, you have to see that we are able to select the correct sample frame. Types of methods of sampling. Broadly, three types. Some people will say only two. Probabilities. Next slide. The different types of sampling is there here. Probability sampling. The other one is non-probability sampling. And other one, people say mixed sampling is also there. What exactly is a probability sampling? What is a non-probability? What is mixed? That we will see in the next slide. Next slide. Probability sampling. Probability sampling is also called random sampling or representative sampling. And it should be representative of the whole population. It should have the characteristics of the total population. Otherwise, conclusions and inferences cannot be drawn on that basis. So, in probability sampling, every member of the population has their role or probability of being included in the sample. Every unit of that has got equal chances of being selected. And the probabilities can be assigned to each unit of the population. So these techniques lead population to be very precise. Techniques cannot be used for population that is too general or category or then almost everywhere. So in this case, probability sampling can be done as the population is precisely defined. What we are trying to say is that we have three kinds of that probability sampling, that every element or unit has got equal chance of being selected like that. So we have certain advantages for that and also some disadvantages of having this. This is going to be advantages. This sampling technique reduces chances of system. If everyone is having no bias, if everyone is having equal chance of being selected, there is an element of fairness. Right? And there is no bias. So this is we can say some advantages, and we go to advantages and disadvantages of this method. Next slide. Aish. Next slide. Advantages and disadvantages we are discussing. Yes, very simple and self-help, and you can all the students can have this PPT, which is very written in a keeping in view in a student-friendly way, and most of them are self-explanatory. You don't require a great brain to understand this one. Keeping in view the average student, this has been prepared, which is very student-friendly. You can download and you can take the copy of that. You can read and understand that. So here, inferences drawn from the sample are generalizable to the population. And instead of taking the whole population, we take some 100 or 200. We study that. These 200 will have the characteristics of the entire population. So whatever outcome is there, whatever results we are getting, that is applicable, that is generalizable to all the population. So that is, but disadvantage, one striking disadvantage of this one, it takes a lot of time. It is time consuming, lot of cost is all. Non-probability, if you just see, it is a judgment sampling, it is called, and it is not a probability sampling. Every unit of population doesn't get an equal chance here, right? The selection of the sample is made on the basis of subjective judgment of the investigator. Here, investigator has a choice. He may be able to cherry pick certain things. So that's why it is called non-probability sampling and all that. So, and here consumer behavior in I have taken one consistently one topic that I have been maintaining all through, consumer behavior towards gearless scooters. In that, if I choose my own sampling, some are who are very close to me in my office, my neighborhood, my community, something like that. If I choose that, I can say that it is a non-probability sampling. I am judgmental about them. I am looking for convenience. I'm looking for these things. So these are all some of the examples are given here. Some advantages and disadvantages are also given about these things. Less effort. It is easy. These techniques need less time to finish up. Well, I mean, I am choosing those who are very close to me and all that. There is no time and other things. They are not much costly also. I have seen convenience to me, right? But the disadvantage is sampling techniques are prone to encounter with systematic errors and sampling bias is there. Study to give the authentic results and all that, it has to be pakka, it has to be systematic. It should not be left to the whims and fancies of a researcher, right? So there may be sampling bias, sampling errors, and systematic errors may be there if it is left to the investigator to choose certain samples on his whims and fancies. And this sample cannot be claimed as a good representative of the population. These are all some of the disadvantages. And our purpose may not be served. Inferences drawn from sample are not generalizable to the population. Whatever conclusions you are drawing, whatever inferences you are drawing, whatever inferences you are having may not be true, may be true, may be applicable, may not be applicable, may be generalizable, may not be generalizable. So this is how we can see sampling techniques. At a techniques. This is the crux of the topic, and we are coming slowly to that. We have in a chart the complete list of sampling techniques and methods we call. Under probability, we have 5. Under non-probability, we have 5. And under mixed, hybrid, both the things are mixed, and we have 2 kinds of. And we'll choose each one of it and try to elaborate them, and we try to give some illustrations here and there so that it is easy for us. One under that, simple random. That is quite easy. And we have also have stratified sampling, systematic sampling, cluster sampling, multi-stage sampling. We will see each one of it slowly. And under non-probability, we have judgment, purposive determinant sample, and quota sampling is there, convenient sampling is there, snowball sampling is also there. Under mixed, we have multi-phase and low-quality assurance. These are all some of the things that we have had. We are coming to the simple random probability, what it is exactly, and we will see. Simple random probability, in this type of sampling, each and every element of the population has an equal chance of being selected in the population sample. Anybody can, in the classroom, I can choose somebody randomly. That means no bias. I'm not seeing the caste, creed, color, bias, no such things. Anybody who comes to the mind, immediately will say. That means in the random selection, everyone has got equal chance. The population must contain a finite number of elements that can be listed or mapped. Every element must be mutually exclusive. The population must be homogeneous. Every element of, to get the feedback about the teacher, I can choose any one of you, because everyone is experiencing, everyone is going through this feeling. And instead of asking the person who has not attended, it is better to ask the person who is attending, right? So anybody can give the feedback, but the subject to condition that everyone must be present and everyone must be there in the class. So there are two kinds here: sampling with replacement, sampling without replacement, in the sense that 10 students are there. I have taken one. That means 9 are there. One fellow has already given feedback. With replacement, in the sense, I again, next time if I want to ask the feedback, I am including that fellow also. That is replacement. Sampling without replacement, that means once I have taken, this man will not include in that group. I will be asking other 9 people only. This is what is called sampling with replacement, sampling without replacement. That means whether you have included the person in that or not. It is like a some examples we have quoted here. At a birthday party, teams for a game are chosen by putting everyone's name into the jar and then choosing the names at random for each item. So in these days, a lot of sales promotion, right? If you have a big malls in your city, if you just walk out, I mean, our Bangalore, I mean, very close to us here, 200 kilometers from my place where I work. Every weekend we go to Bangalore and just to chill out and to hang out and see most of the malls. Most happening place is the malls during weekend. And a lot of attractive offers are also there, especially weekend. Buy one, get to one, 50% flat rate. And all very, very standard brands are also available. You have with regard to, I mean, ready-made garments, shoes, you name a thing. So, but there are also offers in the sense that lucky draw is also there. And they take the phone number of all the person along with the bill. Supposing you have a bill that day 5,000 rupees, you are qualified for the list, you get car, lucky dip. So once in a month, the lucky drip draw is drawn. A person who is getting that will get a car. That means I have only those who have purchased 5,000 rupees worth will be included in that list. So they collect every day 5,000 rupees biller. They collect all their names and mobile number. They put it in one place in a jar. Once in a month, they take a one chit out of that. And every chit has got equal chance. They open that and they find the lucky winner and they try to give the car to him. These are some sales promotion techniques like that. Even restaurants also, if you go to some star hotels, some good restaurants, they take once your dinner and everything is over, they take your business card and they keep all business cards in one place. Once in a month, they take a lucky draw. They make a phone call. Sir, you got your number has come. You come to our restaurant. Today, it is free for you. Right? So in so many pubs and all that, even Bangalore, we is there. And during the weekdays, no rush. To boost that, the strategy that they adopt, you know, if you come with a girlfriend, whatever charge, we don't charge for your girlfriend. Yes. So weekdays, boy and girl will go. Weekends, but weekdays, very down business is not there. What they do? You bring your girlfriend, we don't charge for your girlfriend. This is how certain strategies they adopt, and their lucky draw, lucky coupon, and these are all some of the examples we can say for this particular method of random sampling. And we have certain advantages in this. more. Minimum knowledge of population needed, easy to analyze data. But here it also suffers from, next slide, it also suffers from low frequency of use, does not use research expertise, larger risk of random error. There may be random error also. Wrong person to give feedback. You may be choosing somebody who is not representing totally like that. So there is also a disadvantage of this method, and there is also advantage. This we have seen this particular model of this one. Stratified random sampling is one method that we are going to see. See, for instance, train journey. Let me take the journey, train journey. We have different classes: unreserved class, sleeper class, AC first class, AC second class, AC third class. And the experiences of each class vary across the board. Train is the same, destination is the same, engine is the same, but different classes, there are classes. And the experiences of passengers. If we are studying satisfaction with the service quality of Indian Railways, if the study is done. So if you go to the unreserved class, you ask them, are they, and you are asking them, I mean, this is a stratified. Some people you are choosing from AC, some people you are choosing from second sleeper class. Next strata is unreserved class. That means even in the society, we have different classes: rich people, middle people, lower middle people. All are not equal economically, socially, intellectually. We're all different. And the societal classes are there. That is a fact of life. And even in organization, if you take, CEOs are there, managers are there, rank and file workers are there, white collar workers are there, blue collar workers are there. So we have stratified at the 3 different levels, for instance. And executives' opinions are different, and clerks' opinions are different, attenders' perceptions are different. If you see in this picture will better illustrate stratified sampling. We have a mixture of male and female belonging to different age groups, etc. From out of that, we have chosen some people, we have categorized them, we have adopted strata. And from that strata, we have chosen some people, right? They are called sample. The 2 executives, top level people, 1 or 2, lower level people, 1 or 2. Right? Even in the COVID-19, a lot of studies are taking place. And high risk group, low risk group. They are taking from the frontline warriors and doctors and all, whether it is affecting them, or low risk group, some people who are not at all having exposure, it is affecting them. Like that, different studies are being carried out in these days. Supposing people who are wearing mask, what is the risk? People who are not wearing mask, like that also they can say. So in the COVID times, all these studies must be there. Recently, I was reading today, very interestingly, in a AC room, where a hospital is there, where patients are there, COVID patients are there. How many hours the virus will exist and persist in the air? In ICU, for how many hours? Outside premises, outside hospital, in the air, for how long the virus will survive? A study was conducted. In the hospitals, minimum 2 hours. The virus is there in the air, and maybe in the more hours in the ICU and other these things, AC rooms. That means in recent times, aeroplanes also, hot spots, right? A lot of sanitation is to be done, and if a person is traveling in an AC car with AC on, without opening the windows, chances are more. So like that, we are stratifying the population and seeing that right? And each class is different. Rich people opinion are different, poor people opinion different, middle class opinion is different, right? So if we want to select all the people, there must be a stratified random sampling must be there for this. This is the point that I'm trying to drive home. But this is not suitable for all these topics. For certain topics, supposing we want to study the perception of all employees towards organizational welfare measures in HR topic, for instance. And the facilities given to the lower class people is different. Middle, upper class executives and all, their salary is different, perks are different, fringe benefits are different, facilities are different, amenities are different. But the same organization may not be giving all those things to the blue collar workers, right? There is a discrimination, right? So we are interested in stratifying the organization and taking from every strata some sample, so that we may be able to draw inferences. Top level people, how they are feeling, lower level people, how they are different, like that. I'll take one political example here, right? Pre-poll survey, post-poll survey, right? So many predictions are made in the media. And how they use this method, stratified sampling method, in the sense that farmers, how many? Next, professionals, doctors, rickshaw pullers, auto pullers, casual labor, daily labor, students, unemployed. They take certain parameters and ask them the opinions of the people. And each strata will have their own problems. And poor people will complain about basic necessities. Others people will complain about governance. So getting back to here, we have some stratified random sampling is talked about. Next, we can see systematic random sampling. Systematic random sampling, if you see the blue color one we are choosing, every third is taken into consideration as a sample size. See, every third, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, like that. It's a type also used for homogeneous population. It is a bit different from sampling, simple random sampling. Unlike simple random sampling, there is not an equal probability of every element being included. Some systematically we are choosing this one, and these are all selected at a regular interval, 3, 6, 9 and all. The interval may be in terms of time, space, order, etc. For instance, element appearing after every 30 minutes or present at a distance of 2 meters, or every fifth element present on a list. Like that, certain examples are given here in this. We call that systematic random sampling, and there are certain advantages and disadvantages. The moderate cost, moderate usage is there. That very simple to draw sample, easy to verify and all. And periodic ordering required. This disadvantage is also there. Every sampling method suffers from it has got its advantage, it has got its own disadvantages. Finally, we come to the cluster sampling. What is cluster sampling here? If you see the picture, we will get to know. We go to the slide. I'm giving the next slide. Certain clusters. Cluster means what? Group, right? So if you take UP, Western UP, Eastern UP, right? And some political analysts will say this is favorable to one particular party because there are so many farmers. This region full of traders, Bania. This group is favorable to this particular party, right? Some clusters. That means they are homogeneous group. And they are similar with regard to the perceptions, feelings, etc. We call them as clusters, right? And from every cluster, we draw a sample. The group of elements residing in one geographic region is called a cluster. Western UP, Eastern UP. This is called cluster sampling. And the people living in that particular area, if they have one problem like that, and all of them are with regard to, they may have a water problem, they may have some other problem, and all they are one, right? So the cluster sampling, the group of elements residing in one geographic area is like that. The sampling technique is used when elements of population are spread over wide geographical area. So we have seen very recently concluded US elections, right? There was a neck-to-neck fight between the two incumbents we have seen. And in some states like Arizona or New Jersey or Texas, Houston, in favor of some parties, some people, Republican or whatever. Some regions are in favor of some other these things. So we call them as clusters because of groups and other things having similar characteristics or dissimilarities or whatever. So this is the one predominant cluster model. It has got its advantages and disadvantages. It can estimate characteristics of both the cluster and population. Each cluster is representative, is having similar characteristics. That's why it is grouped. Each cluster is a homogeneous group. So it disadvantage is the cost to reach an element to sample is very high. Reaching them is free and very difficult kind of a thing and all of that. So similarly, we have another multi-stage sampling. And if you just see the diagram, I can explain it very well. Go to the diagram first and then come back to the theory part of it. Multi-stage sampling and yes, this diagram is there in the sense that district, from district to revenue division, from revenue division to village or a small town, right? So first of all, we choose which district to study. In that particular district, like COVID impact. COVID impact is not there in all states. COVID impact in certain areas, like for a long time in Lakshadweep, it is not there. In Kerala, it is very less, right? And in some parts, it is very less. In some parts, it's more. More in the sense that, let us take the example of Tamil Nadu, it is more. Maharashtra, it is more. Delhi, it is more. Right? But it is very less in Punjab or Chandigarh. Right? Even in our Andhra Pradesh itself, if you take, we have some 11 districts or 13 districts. It is not uniform. In some cases, we have in single digits, 2 cases, 3 cases per day. In some districts, it is more. Right? So if you want to study that, we have to take stage-wise, district-wise, and then small town-wise, and then village-wise. So this is called a multi-stage sampling, right? So this is a more accurate because at every level we are taking into consideration to represent the true population. It is a sampling technique where 2 or more probability techniques are combined. It is used when the elements of population are spread over a wide geographical region, and it is not possible to obtain a representative sample with only one aforementioned technique. So we have to adopt a combination of these techniques. The final unit or element of population which is used in investigation is obtained after sampling at several stages. So we have to take some people from district level, some people from revenue division level, some people from small town, small people village level, etc. So for poll predictions and all, they also adopt this one. Region wise, if you want to know, region wise voting preferences and urban people, rural people, district by people, and people living in cosmopolitan, what is their voting preferences, rural area, urban area, suburban. This is how we try to have a multi-stage and we try to get the sampling it out. Now we are moving to the non-probability sampling. One particular method is over. We are moving to the next, very important, very easy non-probability sampling. We have discussed some 4 or 5 in the graph. If you remember, I have given a chart there, judgmental sampling. And what is the judgmental? I exercise my judgment. I think this is suitable as a sample. I am taking. In the consumer behavior example I have given, I can choose some people who in my judgment they are suitable for that, I am choosing them, right? So judgmental sampling called purposive sampling. It may be called purposive sampling also. It is a non-probability sampling technique in which the sample members are chosen only on the basis of researcher's knowledge and judgment, right? So it is not a probability, this is non-probability sampling. As the researcher's knowledge is instrumental in creating a sample, in this sampling technique, there are chances that the result obtained will be highly accurate with minimum margin of error. Minimum margin of error, the chances of error is very, very less in this. The process of selecting a sample using judgmental sampling involves the researchers carefully individual to be part of the sample. As I am telling you, the people who are using moped and all gearless scooters, I choose retired employees some, working women some, students some, and so like that I have certain judgmental etc. And on that basis, I'll be able to choose so that there will not be any margin of error, there will not be any sampling error. That is the idea of judgmental sampling, right? And this is also very, very easy to choose. And the advantages in this is consumers consumes minimum time for execution because they are in our neighborhood. Data collection is easy. Questionnaire preparation, giving them and administering questionnaire is also easy. Researchers to approach their target market directly. I know them, I will go, I will email them, I'll get the responses immediately. Almost real-time results you will get. This is the advantage of that. Next, we are moving to the another most important one is convenient sampling. Convenient sampling is, it's a convenience. It's a self-explanatory. Our convenience really matters. And in most of the researchers follow this method. And this is defined as a method adopted by researchers where they collect market research data from a conveniently available pool of respondents. Now, what is market research here? You must be knowing, you might have studied in your MBA and even in commerce, right? Applications of convenience sampling predominantly before launching a product, after launching a product, to know the feedback, right? So convenience sampling is applied by brands and organizations to measure their perception of their image in the market. Very recently, some brands have come up. I just give you an example. Colgate oil pulling. Very recently, some product, Ayurveda product is introduced into the market. What is this product? Colgate is a very cosmetic company, and using a herbal-based oil pulling, using herbs in the context of COVID-19. Now, every product is positioned on the basis of immunity booster and kills the virus. These sort of things, everything today. I mean, Wipro also launched some sanitizer, hygienics or something like that. And our Patanjali launched immunity booster COVID kit like that. And every soap, this thing they are positioned directly. Even good night also they'll say it drives away all viruses. So in this context, what we can say, our example I have taken, Colgate oil pulling. What it exactly is a new product launched in the market, new to the market actually. In that, certain herbs are there. They're collected, jari-buti, whatever we call in North India. You collect all these things, and it is the essence of that is extracted in the form of oil. If you put into the mouth and swirl inside the mouth and rinse it, whatever bacteria is there, it will come out. Right? Indirectly, is telling that the virus, if it is entering, it will be there in the mouth for 1 or 2 days, in the throat, and ultimately it will settle down in the lungs. That's what people are saying, So we have to, gatekeepers are barriers. In the mouth, in the throat itself, we can control. And in the mouth itself, we can control. That's why steam inhalation is suggested. And gargling, hot water with salt and turmeric gargling is advised. On the similar lines here, Colgate has come out with oil pulling, a new product that is launched, and with herbs and all that. If you swirl in this mouth and all bad things will come out. And that's that. We want to know the feedback about the people. How many people use that? What is their happiness, satisfaction? Any suggestion they're going to make about that? So this convenience sampling is useful in the market surveys before launching a product, after launching a product, right? Try to know so that with any corrections with regard to product packaging, formulation, pricing, distribution, we will be able to bring about that. So this is continuously, every company will have its own market research department. They may be able to 24/7, 365 days, they carry out some survey or other so that they may be able to make some corrective steps regarding the product. So advantages of this: collect data quickly, inexpensive to create samples, it's low cost, easy to do research, and readily available sample, right? And nothing, there are no formal rules to follow like that. So this is how we can say this method is very, very easy, especially for fast moving consumer goods and all. It may be Dabur. And very recently, I just will tell you a very interesting thing. Honey, like some approximately 22 companies are selling honey, different brand names. We have Dabur honey, Patanjali honey, and Fortune. So many brands are there. Recently, one government agency has conducted some tests to know the authenticity, whether it is a purity test, whether it is whether adulteration is there, contamination is there in this, like that. They have identified out of 22, nearly 18 are using adulterated these things. Very famous, popular, heavily advertised companies are. Barring a few, only 4 could pass. Remaining 18 are under this. The 18 are now under damage control. Now they are giving heavy advertisements. They are showing the factory. See how good our factory is there, how good the manufacturing process is there. And we have so many tests where we have passed, we have international recognition, ISO, this, that they say, right? So, and they have their own, they might have passed some tests, they'll say like that. But here, consumers are interested in knowing, right, which company is giving. Supposing we want to conduct a perception of consumers about the purity of different brands of honey. Some small questionnaire is given. Basing on their experiences, everyone will say this is pure, this is not pure. They have their own tests at home. So homemade, homegrown tests are there. They may be able to carry out a batch of tests and ultimately come to the conclusion and say that. Right? So we have certain another interesting sampling is there, quota sample. Very easy. Most of the students know when they are fed up with this different kinds of sampling method and all that. Let us have some fancy figure and let us try to follow that number, right? So what we do in a hypothetical example, I have given consumer behavior towards gearless scooters in Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh, just like Western UP, Eastern UP, and we say no. Here also, we have taken one part of 4 districts, some region which was ruled by one king. 4 districts, we say Rayalaseema region. In that, for every district, I'll say 100 for one district, 100 for a district, 100 for this, like that we can choose. That's why we say a quota, right? Quota sampling is defined as a non-probability sampling method in which researchers create a sample involving individuals that represent a population, right? Researchers choose these individuals according to specific traits or qualities. They decide and create quotas so that the market research samples can be useful in collecting data. So this is one of the, these simple samples can be generalized into the entire population. The final subset will be decided only according to the interviewers' researchers' knowledge of the population. So what I'm trying to say is that every district 100. We don't go further details into that. This is a easy easy to operate, easy to administer. For every district, I am taking 100. 4 districts are there, 400 total sample. This is a quota I have. So, and the remaining methods, differences are, this is very easy, right? So there are also two different types of quota sampling. Controlled quota sampling, uncontrolled. You have certain restriction quota you are choosing, and another one is that there is no restriction at your will. Whatever you want, you can choose the quota. These are all the two types of quota sampling, and the basic characteristics of quota sampling, if you are able to see, the aims to get the best representation of respondents in the final sample. Quotas replicate the population of interest in the real sense. That means whatever traits are there, these samples will also have the same characteristics. In true sense of the term, they are the true representative of that. The estimates produced are more representative. The quality of quota samples vary and saves researcher data collection time as a sample represents the population. And the researcher always divides the population into subgroups. A sample represents the entire population. Researcher uses a sampling method to identify traits of specific group of people. This is easy. Most of the research scholars follow this type of method because of its simplicity and all. And what is the modus operandi and what is the mechanism and mechanics of going for quota sampling is that divide the sample population into subgroups and figure out the weightage of the subgroups, select appropriate sample size, conduct survey according to the quotas defined. So this is a example of a researcher wants to survey individuals about what smartphone brand they prefer to use. She considers a sample size of 500 respondents, and she is only interested in surveying 10 states in India. The researcher can divide the population by quotas and gender: male 250, female 250. 100 respondents each between the ages of 16 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40. Age group is also given. Employment status: employed 350, 150 unemployed. So 50 responses per state. It's for every state they have given some quota like that, right? And this is also predominantly at the time of elections and all. Some people will try to carry out survey, right? This is a particular method. We have another snowball sampling method. But this is a snowball sampling method, we'll see. Snowball sampling or chain referral, we call chain referral sampling, is defined as a non-probability sampling technique in which samples have traits that are rare to find, right? This is a sampling technique in which existing subjects provide referrals to recruit samples required for a research study. I'll give you an example. We want to study the religious tourists' behavior. Some tourists are going to the religious places and we want to study them. But how to catch hold of them? We find one religious tourist. We ask him, who else has gone? That fellow will give 2 names. And we go to them. Again, we catch hold of them. Who has gone along with you? He will give 2 other names. We'll go to them. We collect them. So in virus contact tracing, no, they adapted this method. This virus know this. So they catch hold of one fellow. He will tell about whom he has contacted. The first virus problem I just vividly recall. Last year in the month of March 3rd, if I remember, March 2nd or 3rd, one person from Dubai or Singapore came to Bangalore. First case in Andhra Pradesh. That fellow landed in Bangalore and took a bus. He went to Hyderabad. Symptoms, and he was caught. They started asking him, where you have gone, from where, what are the mode of transport you have used, whom you met, when did you go to office. One fellow has gone to the he's a software engineer in Bangalore. He has gone to China, and he contracted the disease. He came to Singapore. From Singapore to Bangalore, landed. He went to office. He met his colleagues. Afterwards, next day or so, he took a bus. He traveled all the way to. In Hyderabad also, he met family members. That means family members have to be tested. The people who travel in the bus must be tested. His colleagues must be tested. The flight he came along with, all the other must be tested. So this is, we can say, a snowballing kind of this one. And this is a chain referral. And if you go to one person, he will tell about others' names. If you go to them, they will tell other names. This is how snowballing, this is also predominantly used. And depending on the nature of the problem, a sample can be chosen. One sample doesn't suit all. So we have to see about the population and their characteristics, which sampling method is suitable for us. We have to study like that and all. So this method is a low cost, very inexpensive kind of a thing. You can easily use that, and useful in specific circumstances for locating rare population, like identifying the tourists or identifying a patient infected with the scourge of virus and all that. Disadvantage is not independent. Projecting data beyond sample not justified. It's not possible to trace them and all that. So this is how, to sum it up and all, we are just, before I wrap this session and all that, we can talk about, we have started with the comparison between the past research and present research. How research in my generation, how research in your generation, what kind of metamorphosis, what kind of evolution, what kind of revolution is just taken shape. And the publications in the past and publications now, and data collection methods, and library. We used to go to different libraries, physically traveling a lot of places and all. And we use the typewriter. You are using laptops. And to identify the old thesis and all, we used to go to different libraries across India. Now you need not. You have one single place. Shodh Grantha, whatever, you can download all university thesis in one place, right? This is very easy for you. Now that you have certain Scopus index journals, UGC care journals, and with high impact factor and APA score, these are all the new normal, new jargon people are using for your generation. And you have one great barrier, a stumbling block for most of the people is that plagiarism. What exactly is a plagiarism? Most of the students should know is that with the advent of all this proliferation of too much of data, people are resorting to cut paste. Research has become very easy, dusk bound. People are easily copying from different sources, cut paste, and simply bind it and submit and get PhD. Recently, UGC appointed a committee to look into the thesis awarded for the past 10 years across different universities in India, right? So very deplorably, standards are falling down. Generation after generation, there is only degeneration. This is the world schools usually blame the present generation about the abysmal fall of values, academic ethics, and like that. And plagiarism is one such, which will be like detect which part of the paragraph or sentences you have lifted, from where you have lifted. It will give complete sources of that. We have certain packages, software packages, Turnitin, Urkund, a lot of other things are also. And the permissible limit varies from university to university. Some will say 10%, some will say 20%, some will say 30%. And UGC is now very implementing very strictly with the guidelines and all that. It should not be more than 15%. Like that, if you have a review of literature, bound to be some sort of, you need to, if you want to write something creative, you can write a novel. right? But this one, what you are saying, these are all the existing studies. These people have said like this. In my study, I am saying like this, right? That means we are making direct or indirect references to others who are doing this. So if it is my own work, I can write a book, I can write a fiction, I can write a novel. There is a certain methodology to be followed as far as thesis is concerned. While writing, I have to make a mention of other people also. Review of literature, research gaps, scope for future research, right? So while I'm doing the others comparison, naturally I have to use other things that will come under plagiarism. So these are all some of the things. And I mean, this is the time for us. This is what we have talked about, different sampling methods with advantages, disadvantages. Like that, we have come to the conclusion, and this first session is over, and with a half an hour break, and we move to the second session, and it may be resuming at about 3 o'clock. It's time for you to have lunch or whatever, and I don't hold you back for long. You must be hungry as well as angry, and 1.5 hours time is over. It's time for a sumptuous, very delicious, mouth-watering lunch. Have lunch and relax for about half an hour and get back here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. It was very much, very much elaborative, sir, actually. And we will definitely meet at the 3 p.m. so that we can we can have more shower of your blessings, sir, on us.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
sir.
much, sir. Okay, sir.
Hmm.